Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Talk Junkies. Thank you all for tuning in and watching Talk Junkies. It's we appreciate that. Last week we had John Klizek on. We talked about eugenics. We did a really hardcore deep dive into eugenics. So if you guys missed that last week's talk, definitely switch back last week. Check out that podcast we did with John Klizek. Really great interview.
It was
with
a good
him.
one. I liked it.
It was. This week we're bringing back Doctor John Ure back on. 3 weeks ago we had him on, and we had a really wonderful podcast with him. He's been a physician, ER doctor. He's been in the military, a doctor in the military. He's done it all. He truly has, for close to 40 years of his life, dedicated to medicine, healing people, making them feel better. He's flown planes, crashed planes. He's done a little bit of, honestly, everything, Dr. John Ure. I appreciate you joining Talk Junkies again, man. How are you doing, and what's going on, man?
Well, I'm well, the truth of it is I'm doing very good right at this point. However, it's not a fun subject. Being a doctor, I've had my fingers in every kind of orifice you can imagine and dealt with every kind of body fluid that you can think about. And I've had, over the last 5 days, some what we'd call watery explosive diarrhea that just won't stop. I thought I might have had that COVID stuff, but I have no problem breathing, and hopefully we can get through this whole thing without me having to take a break, but I think we'll be good.
How much Chipotle have you had?
Flying, I forgot to say.
How much Chipotle have you had, man?
Actually, I went to the Mexican restaurant today. No, here's the deal. My friends Kevin Phillip and his son Chad, who lives down in Oklahoma, was up here. Chad came up to visit my neighbor, who is Kevin, and hopefully we can get him on the show in the future. But they bought a building that's 150 years old up in the town of Deepwater that used to be a carriage manufacturing building, and it needs a lot of tender, loving care. I went up there to look at it with them, and then they wanted to go on up to Clinton to get some Mexican food. You can relate to that, Paul. We ate at El Puerto, but prior to going in there, I stopped by at the Dollar Tree and picked up some 2-liter bottles of lemon soda to calm my stomach. And so that is the first time I've ever gone into a Mexican restaurant and sat there and visited with friends and only drank some Sprite. Did not have a chip, not one bite, but I feel pretty good right now.
Man, what is that, the
one
biome?
thing I did want to share with you guys that Say again?
No, you're good. You're good.
Say it
Continue.
Again.
No, I was going to talk about the biome.
Okay. Kevin Phillips, who we spoke about before in the other podcast that we did, has been working really hard on our grass runway. It's 1,900 feet on my property, just a mile or so from here. And we'll be taking off and landing airplanes right there. That'll be fun. You guys can come down and we'll do some flying. Not ultralights. I'm not getting back in an ultralight. But anyhow, I wanted to let you know that finally the article that I wrote on masks with this COVID thing was published out of the News with Views website out in Oregon. And I thought maybe it just got lost somewhere. Then I started getting a lot of email comments on how they appreciated the article, questioning about how they're going to be dealing with this mask thing. Like one lady, for example, I thought was really interesting. She was with an educational company that basically provided education for the Texas Correctional Institution. And she was in her mid-50s, and she said that the educational aspect of it said all she had to do was wear a face shield. But the prison system said she had to wear a mask. So she tried to appeal it and everything. Ended up, bottom line, she has to wear a mask underneath the shield, and she has asthma, and it causes her a lot of trouble. So she was wanting to know about that, and what she might do, and so on. But anyway, any questions about any of the things I've mentioned so far?
No, the only thing that I would say before we get into what we're going to dive into tonight, when it pertains to mask, I think it's a lot of things are going on within that aspect. And one thing I see a lot is people driving in their cars with their mask on, with the windows up. And I'm like, what the fuck
See,
is?
I haven't seen that yet,
dude. I've seen it so much.
I have yet to see that.
And I'm like, truly,
how have you not seen it? How have you not seen
I'm like, what is going on?
I don't open my eyes when I drive.
What truly is going on with how ignorant are people to be in their own cars with the mask on? Okay, now whenever you see one person do it, you're like, okay, maybe they forgot, maybe blah 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 blah. But when you see like 10, 15, 20 people doing it, you're like, oh my God, this society has delved deep into the wayside. And not only that, but working where I'm at, not only that aspect, but the aspect of, and again, I know that back in 1918 and in 1919 and the 1920s, they had the Spanish flu and they wore masks and they did all that shit too to protect themselves from a deadly virus. The aspect of just human to human interaction and the fact that whenever I go into work and I've met all new people, 30, 40 new people, I have no idea what they look like.
I see like 50 new people every day.
No, I'm saying employees at the job that I work at. I'm not saying guests. I have no idea what any of my fellow or women employees look like. True, like I don't know what they look like at all. And
you don't know what they look like. Just see their eyes. Yeah,
that's it.
Well, hey, before we leave this, I need to have you guys know something that I don't think you know. The 1918 Spanish flu was not a flu, okay? It was a meningitis bacterial infection. And I put that in my second COVID article that's on the news with views. And guess where it came out of? It came out of Fort Leonard Wood. Or was it? No, wait, Fort Riley. I said Fort Leonard Wood because I worked up there too, but it came out of Fort Riley back in the time when they had the horses and all that kind of stuff out there, and they actually grew the vaccine that they injected these guys with, which was the meningitis vaccine, that they grew it in cows, and then there was a series of 3 shots that they gave to our military people, and they used them as guinea pigs, and then they sent them on trains, boats, and sent them all over the world. And it was a meningitis bacterial infection. Isn't that interesting?
It's very interesting. And you can back that up 100%?
Absolutely. When you come back in and check it, anything that I tell you is really significantly researched and documented. Although I tell you what, one other thing, and I doubt that the people watching this podcast will see it, but I am going to put a correction in News with Views, because the article I did on the fires of California, I said 50,000 people had died. And then I came back and looked at it trying to find it, and I think I might have just misinterpreted it because it said 50,000 people had been displaced from their homes. And a lot of folks said like Paradise, California only had like 26,000 people there and so on. It looked like after significant study of seeing the directed energy weapon that's being used out there, somewhere around 1,000 people they know is dead for sure. But the way the things were, they could have been totally incinerated, turned to ash, and who would ever even know that there was a body there, you know?
I was going to say 50,000 deaths, okay. So that's an insanely high number.
Yeah, so for anyone, tonight's gonna be a very special topic, and I know it's kind of going down the holistic approach, and the Earth has a lot to offer for anyone that's looking, and I know that the Doctor, you're gonna go really, really deep into this, and we're gonna ask you a lot of good questions, and there might be some questions, back and forth, just trying to figure out what this truly is. And like I said, the Earth has so much to offer, and whenever you're born into this Earth, you really don't know what it has to complement your own body. You're never taught it in school. Whenever you go pre-K 5 to 12, you're never taught what the Earth truly has to offer for you, right? And being an adult now, and I'm in my 30s, I've started to look into this stuff. I haven't really practiced much of it, but I truly believe, and this is just my opinion, I'm not speaking for Johnny or Jesse, that the Earth has more to offer than I've ever been led to believe. And the Doctor's going to get into it, and what it's called Earthing. Earthing is again, the doctor's going to speak on it. Dr. Ure's going to speak on it and tell us exactly what it is. But I think it has a lot to offer each and every single person that steps foot on this earth. And there are a lot of countries that actually practice what he's about to talk about.
Or grounding. I think you can also Google it as grounding.
Yeah. So, Doctor, I don't know how you want to get into it, man, but let's do it.
Okay. We'll get to going with that. Let's see. I was gonna say something. I should have jotted it down as it got to flying. Oh, I know what it was. Is this? What I saw, interestingly, in the last few days, right now, all of us, you three guys and me, it's our turn to be here on the world. And I read something about Hugh Hefner. I didn't know that Hugh Hefner died a year ago in September.
Well,
it told some stuff about him and all like that.
Well, longer than that.
It was definitely longer than that.
Yeah, it was longer ago than that Hugh Hefner died.
Well, then maybe the article I was looking at said a year ago, and I didn't check the date on it. So
yeah, it's probably been about 4 years for Hugh Hefner.
But okay,
because
the other one is a fellow by the name. Go ahead.
No, the whole joke was nobody can ever say that Hugh Hefner went to a better place because of the life that he lived on Earth. But that's just the joke. That's the joke that I remember hearing. So I just had to throw in that joke.
Anyway, a fella by the name of Dwayne Graveline, Gravlin. He's all over the internet, and it was actually his website that brought my attention to earthing. And then I found out that he died here, I don't know when, because I guess they put a date there on his death and so on. But he wrote quite a number of books. And another subject we want to maybe put down for later are the statin drugs. We've got 50 million people taking statin drugs to lower their cholesterol that are actually killing themselves with it. But anyway, the point I'm getting at is I am on the downhill curve. I've only got 10 to 15 years left, and then it's going to be my time to check out. You guys have quite a bit more time, but it goes by so fast. You just really need to get off the hamster wheel, concentrate on enjoying your family, enjoying nature, getting out and having a great time, and forget about the acquisition of stuff, which we're going to find out here in a few minutes that the fella that really is the modern guru of this, he did just that. So with that being said, here we go. We're going to go with earthing. First thing I'm going to show you is the book that I got. This is so well worn that you can see the feet if I bring it up here close. It's bare feet walking on the sand. To give you an idea, it was my office copy. It's in 2 pieces. I've got all kinds of notes and everything in here. And the people that wrote this book, which we'll get into here shortly, this is a picture of Clint Ober, as you can see him there. And then the fellow that was a co-writer of the book is Steven Sinatra, the fellow listed there. And then the last fellow here is Martin Zucker. I think you can probably see that pretty well. Those are the 3 authors of this book. Okay, how did I find out about it? Well, something that I want you to realize is that there's a time and a place for everything to become aware to you, okay? And by that, I mean, I was studying the cholesterol-lowering medicines known as statins because I was seeing people in the emergency room 70 to 80, 90 years old. They were on Lipitor and stuff like that. And I knew that it was not going to make a bit of difference between the time I was seeing them and the day they died, that it wasn't going to be helping them. And the more I studied it, it was actually hurting them, sending them into senile dementia, Alzheimer's disease, destroying their muscles. It was just horrible. And so I found the website called spacedoc.net. And that's where Dwayne Graveline was a flight surgeon as well as an astronaut. And there's a lot of stuff on the internet about him. We're not going to go into that now. But I was reading on that. I was studying it. I left it alone. 6 months later, I came back to see if there was any new stuff on the site. And I saw Steven Sinatra had Earthing Part 1 through 5. I looked at it, I said, what's Earthing? Never heard about it. Didn't know a thing about it. So I started looking at it. And as I read it, my mouth just dropped open. It was like, well, one thing you guys didn't know is I took a course from Bell and Howe in electronics when I was a 9th grade science teacher. I built an oscilloscope and a TV and a multimeter and learned way more than what the average Joe would about electronics and the way it works. So all this stuff just clicked. The next thing that happened is my sister had one of these Kindles, kind of about when the first ones came out. And I thought that was a pretty good idea. So I ordered one of those. And the first book that I put on the electronic format was Earthing. And then I took my girlfriend at the time, we loaded up in my plane, we flew down into the Bahamas, took off from the coast of Florida, 30 minutes across the ocean, which that was a little bottom puckering time because you know, you don't want to ditch out there. But then when I saw land, I was over there and it was fun and we had a great time. And so I read the entire book during that particular vacation and things just started to click. And so I started trying to use it with my patients, and I found out, as you guys probably know, something in an electronic format is very difficult to come back and find a page and search for it, and it's a frustration. So I went ahead and bought it in hard copy. Subsequently, this one here, you can't read it now, but it actually said office copy on the front. It's just pretty well worn away. But anyhow, I bought a whole bunch of these books and in essence sold them to the patients and such as that. Never really made much money on it.
So,
but what we're going to be dealing with, go ahead.
You're
heard a question.
We got a lot of information going in right now, but I think and you may have been just about to be going into it. What is earthing? Like if for the average listener, or just for anyone who's listening, okay. What is earthing? Like, what is the concept of it?
Well, you're going to get that pretty heavily in a bit. But what earthing is, easily stated, if I was to sum it up sitting on a park bench, it's actually being in contact with the surface of the earth. It's a large repository of electrons, and these electrons come flowing into your body when you physically touch the earth, put your hands in the soil, walk barefoot in the grass or on the beach or get in the salt water. And we humans and all the animals and plants are very much like cell phones, and they have to be charged up. And these electrons are what actually charge us up and make us work to full capacity. That answers that question.
Yes.
Okay. The next thing I was going to show you, tell me if, can you see this at all on here? That's a picture on the inside of the cover showing the electrons having a negative charge with protons and neutrons in the center of the atom. And these electrons are what we're dealing with. And I thought for introduction here, there's something that says praise for earthing. And what it says by a gal by the name of Gittelman, who's PhD, earthing ranks right up there with the discovery of penicillin. This book is probably the most important health read of the 21st century. And then there's a whole page of praising, whole nother page of praising. But the other one that I was most impressed with was this. A doctor by the name of Gersten, an MD, says, the feedback from patients is now so strong that I know predictably as a doctor, this will change a person's life. Okay? Now, here's the thing. I am prepared to go into this and tell you just exactly how this took place, what happened, get the history of Ober and all of the stuff that went with that, if you have a mind to do that. And if not, we can let people find that and do it on their own and concentrate on some of the other aspects. So give me some guidance.
So and Jesse, I'll let you go. Sorry, I know you're about to say something. But again, have an open mind, because realistically, like when anyone looks up grounding or earthing on Google, you're going to find a certain thing, and it's going to tell you exactly what it's about. But be open-minded for the fact that we literally wear shoes every single day. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have two daughters, and right around like a year old, right when you start walking, that's when you start putting the shoe on, right? And then I still let my youngest daughter, go outside and not wear shoes. But in your whole, like from 5 to I'm 30 now, I've probably worn shoes for 90% of my life, minus sleeping. That's a very long time. So what I'm saying is have an open mind to this. Anyone who goes about their day-to-day and we work this constant cycle, you haven't really even practiced this, nor have you even thought about it. So that's all I'm saying, is just have an open mind.
I think the first thing that negatively comes up to not even my opinion, but for a lot of people, they go, "Man, this is some hippie crap you're trying to put on me right now. Like, take my shoes off? I'm a hard-working American. I don't have time to take my shoes off, man. That sounds like some 70s, roll around in the mud, anti-Vietnam war shit you're talking about right now. Like that's the first thing that comes to mind, because the holistic medicine also has that kind of feel to it too.
It's got that negative connotation
that comes with it.
You're absolutely right. And a lot of people think it's all like woo woo. They call it way out there. And I've had patients say, I don't believe this. They even said, you mean to tell me you won't write me a prescription for my pain medicine unless I get on an earthing sheet or get this stuff? And the Board of Healing Arts was giving me crap because they thought that I made them buy sheets from me to make money off of it as kind of a carrot in front of the horse in order to make more money for me, which wasn't it at all. I wanted them to get the effects from it of a natural way of decreasing their pain, and that's what I did. Now, backing up a minute, I want to read this here real quick. It says, the world's most dangerous invention. David Wolf calls the shoe the world's most dangerous. After 15 years, the shoe is one of the most destructive culprits of inflammation and autoimmune disease in our lives, separates us from the healing earth, energy of the earth. Put a shoe on, he says it's gone. Because we have so many nerve endings on the bottom of our feet. And, that's how you communicate with the earth when you're walking on it. And I can tell you equivocally as a physician that I have seen such positive results from this, not only in my own life, because I hate to say this, but I just had my birthday. I'm 74 years old. And people say, oh, man, you look a way lot younger than that. And I think it's because the last 10 years, I've been very faithfully using the concept of earthing. The very first person I tried the earthing on was my mother to see how it worked. And I did a makeshift deal. I took a lawn chair. There's some tape about 2 inches wide that was for the horses for electric fence. I wrapped those around the arms of her chair, grounded the chair, had Mom sit in it. I hadn't read the part that you need to introduce it a little bit slower. She sat there for about 2 hours and she got a little nauseated from it. And so what happened, I like that look on your face, but what happened was it was correcting so much stuff and getting rid of so many toxins that were flooding her system, it really upset her balance. But later, an interesting story, Mom was on full board with it, and she bought earthing sheets and she gave them out to the family members for Christmas presents and so on. And a funny little story, out in Oregon, on my sister's bed was a fitted earthing sheet that was Mom's bed. Mom lived in my sister's house.
So what is a fitted earthing sheet?
Okay, well, basically is a sheet that was purchased from a company called Earthing.com out in California, and it was just a linen sheet that had little silver threads in it. And then you hooked it up to a ground wire that went out the window, and it was artificially, because you don't want to be going out in the wintertime and laying down on the ground and so on. So it was a way of bringing it into the home and using it, in a more comfortable fashion. But back to the situation, the first time that I used it and slept on it, I woke up fully charged, ready to go 2 hours earlier than I ordinarily would. I said, what's the deal here? This is crazy. And the same thing happened out there when my niece, Shelly, slept on grandmother's sheet. She came out and she said, I don't know what it was, but I was buzzing all night long. And I woke up 2 hours earlier than usual. Everybody started laughing. They said, you're sleeping on grandma's sheet. And then she said, I want one for Christmas. So that kind of gets us going with it.
So let me ask you real quick. I didn't realize, because you just said that this is something you've been practicing for roughly the last 10 years, introduced your mother to it, talking about your family and everything. I was under the impression this was something relatively new, so this has been a thing for a while.
Yes, it has. About 20 years. As a matter of fact, in my notes here, it goes clear back to the year of 2000. And this fellow that we mentioned, Clint Ober, who I'm classifying him as the modern discoverer of the concept of earthing. And I can rather quickly go through the history of what took place on it. But here's the thing. I found this out in my own research. It has simply been rediscovered because in India, the ancient practitioners of yoga and the monks and so on living up in the mountains every night sleep on a copper sheet with a ground wire that goes out into the soil. So it's been known for years and the information was lost, then it was rediscovered. Pretty interesting, huh?
Yes.
I've never heard of that in my life. In my life, I've heard of a lot of things.
Okay.
I've never heard of
All right.
of like a bed that's connected to the ground.
Two things. Okay, we'll talk about a couple of things. I want to tell you what my patients, Thomas Dade said, and then my friend that we talked about, Dave Lovewell, who was in that first podcast, he made an earthing walking stick. And Thomas Dade was the first patient in my practice that I tried on earthing. And I want to tell you both about them. So I'm going to jot it down here a little so I don't lose track. So we're going to go with Dade first, and we're going to go with stick second. And so Thomas Dade and his wife came into the clinic over in El Dorado Springs. I put an earthing mat on their floor in front of their chairs, asked both of them to take off their shoes and socks, put their feet on the mat, plugged it into the ground pin on the electrical outlet, and proceeded to do doctor stuff. In about 15 minutes, Thomas said, "Hey, doc, my feet are getting warm." Well, with that comment, I peeked up over the desk, looked at his feet, and they were pink as a baby's bottom. And so that was the first experience, and it increased his circulation, which I'll show you in a little bit exactly how that works, because that's important. Along that same line, these walking sticks were my own idea, and Dave Lovewell made one. And all he did was take a walking stick, down here using this pin, for example, put a bolt in the bottom of it, put a copper wire on it, wrapped it around the stick up to where his hand was, then wrapped the wire around there, and then held on to it. So when you were walking, regardless of what kind of shoes you had on, you were constantly still grounded. And in the winter, he had his brother take a hold of it. "Tell me what you feel with holding this down in the earth." And the guy said, "My hand is warm." And that's actually part of the deal. It improves your circulation. So, are you ready to jump into it? And I think what I'm going to do, since our time is really important.
Can I bring a fairly
into the amount of detail?
I'm sorry. Can I go?
Absolutely. I told you guys to.
Yeah, no. Can I go ahead and bring
ahead.
you a fairly big argument that's going to come against this right now? Is the fact that people live in concrete basements. They have wood floors. These are all fairly natural things. I mean, concrete still, so this is preventing that from happening naturally. Because I walk around on hardwood floors.
Well, wood's not conductive.
I mean,
wood has a super low.
Neither is soil.
Soil is higher conductivity than wood
because of the moisture. So it has to do with the moisture content. But my whole thing is what's preventing that from happening naturally, walking around barefoot in your house? Is there something that takes place within the construction of your house as far as like the flooring and the metals and everything that just throws all this off? That prevents that?
Sitting here in my home right here where I am now and in this chair, I've thought if we ever had like a Ross Perot or a Donald Trump that wanted to invest in this concept, you could make a complete community where the home was grounded, the building materials were all grounded, the chairs were grounded, the beds were grounded, and you would have a wonderful life living in that home. But people don't want to believe in it. They don't think it's true, but I can guarantee you it is true. Another funny little story I'll give you rather quickly. When I went to Africa, I took a sleeping bag type of thing. It was called a recovery bag. They cost around $300. It was out of the same material as the sheets were made of, but you basically pulled it over you. And the Tour de France team, our cycling team of the United States, used those every night after competition or training because it recharged them, took care of their aches and pains, their bruises, helped their healing, and so on. Anyway, I was in an African's home. If you've never been in an African's home, I was in Kenya. The floor was cement with a carpet on the cement. They always wear rubber flip-flops in there. The walls are cement, and I had taken an earthing mat, probably the same one we used under Thomas Dade's feet. And I had the earthing book with me, and I only had one copy of the earthing book. And when I shared this information with the African gentleman where we were staying at his house, he was so impressed. All of a sudden, he came walking out of the back, and I can't remember how much money he handed me, 30, 40, 50 bucks, whatever it was. He said, that mat in this book is not leaving my house. Here, I want it. And then I did some testing, though, with some meters that I had, and found out that actually, if they were to walk on that carpet on the cement and it had some moisture in it, it served as a grounding purpose. And I didn't know that until I started doing some checking and could see that. But as soon as they put the flip-flops on, then they took it away. Are you following?
Yeah. Because I mean,
Okay.
I don't know how conductive concrete is, but to your thing earlier, Jesse, I know that wood is super unconductive, inconductive, whatever you want to call.
I can tell you this, of surfaces, concrete and stone, masonry, and such as that will conduct the electrons to you. Asphalt will not, because of the tars and stuff in there. They act as an insulator. Rubber. Okay. Are you ready to jump into a little bit of quick history?
Oh, yeah.
I will.
All right.
Actually,
Clint, go ahead.
Real quick before you jump into the history of it, because I'm trying to. I won't lie. I came into this initially pretty biased before, like, knowing of the topic ahead of time. I came in pretty biased against it. I'm trying to remain unbiased, and you've helped a lot with that because you've brought up a lot more of the electricity aspect of it, as to where initially I thought it was more just like a Mother Nature thing, and I wanted to say, hey, this is just the equivalent of meditating, but with extra steps. Like, you're calling it something else, but it's just meditating. So thank you for bringing in the electricity part.
It's an absolutely purely physical aspect that charges us, and you say, okay, can you overcharge? How often do you have to do it? We can answer all those questions because those are good ones. But let's jump back in, fly up through here, and I don't know where our time is, but here we go. Clint Over was born July 14th, 1944, Fort Dodge, Iowa. Most of his early life was spent up in Montana. He learned a lot of the Native American ways, listening to the land, dealing with nature. A quick little story from the Indians. They had a little baby that was like not quite a year old. They thought it had scarlet fever. The Indians actually dug a pit into the earth, put some straw and like that down in there, and put fires around it and sat with that baby for several days. The baby was totally cured. That's an interesting one. In the early 60s, Ober was involved with cable television and lived out in Denver, Colorado, and he had one of the largest cable TV installations that was going. 1993, he became to a near-death situation. An abscessed tooth moved down and caused a liver infection, and it damaged his liver so much they actually told him he wasn't going to be able to live. Another doctor said, what we can do is we can remove all of the damaged tissue and simply hope for the best, kind of an experimental surgery. And he said, let's try it. Well, 28 days he was in the hospital. When he came out from that, he looked outside. He said the sky was a very deep blue. The trees were a more vibrant green. He took a completely new view on life. He had a 5,000 square foot home out in Evergreen, Colorado, with 360 degrees of all of the mountains. He said that he had $500,000 worth of art in his bathroom because he had no other place to put it. So he made a fortune on this. Anyway, he decided that his possessions owned him, and he was wanting to free himself from his possessions. So he sold his big house. He called his kids, told them to come out and get anything that they want. Otherwise, they were going to lose out on it, and so on. The kids wanted him to go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. They said, Dad's lost his mind. He did go just to placate them. Psychiatrist said, no, he's doing what he wants to do. Let him go with it. He took the money he had. He bought a 40-foot van or a 40-foot motorhome and started traveling around the country. In Key Largo, he was sitting there looking out at the skies one night. He was kind of just thinking, what is it I'm supposed to be doing now? And then automatically, he simply wrote down on a piece of paper next to him this phrase, become an opposite charge. So in my opinion, he was tuned in to something that was trying to tell him something. The next morning, he thought the Earth was trying to tell him something else. Little did he know that a compelling force would lead him to understand that humans have a bioelectrical connection to the Earth. Okay, simply grounding neutralizes charges on the body, protects the nervous system, and shields the body from extraneous electrical events. And so, as he was traveling in this, he ended up going down to Sedona, Arizona, and he stayed there for a couple of years and was working just kind of as a hobby situation, uh, installing electric lights in some of the shops and like that the tourists were passing by. He was sitting on a park bench. He saw a tourist come up, and they had stopped at an outlet mall. And as all the people got off, they all had on their nice Nikes and Adidas tennis shoes and stuff. And he thought, I wonder if what's the possibility that they're doing damage to themselves. That maybe they should be grounded. And so with that, he started pursuing that, because all of the footwear we wear now, as opposed to what used to be leather soled shoes, leather collars on dogs, leather leashes, everything's gone to non-conductive materials. Even when you're riding a horse, you really should have leather reins on that horse, from the saliva, the mouth of the horse, up the hoofs and stuff, to bring the electrons into your body while you're horseback riding and so on. So anyway, what he did is he got a multimeter, and he went around his apartment that he was living in and started taking some measurements. And he found that the largest amount of electrical activity was in the wall right at the head of his bed. And on the other room, the other opposite of the wall of his room, was his entertainment center. And all those wires were run everywhere, as one will do, to hooking up all the components and what have you. And so he then went down to the local hardware store, bought some metallic duct tape, and made a crude mat, laid it, and then he grounded it to a wire that went out the window into a ground rod. And then he was up there laying on the bed, and he was fiddling around with it. And the next thing he knew, it was morning. He went fast to sleep, woke up, and he had hip pain virtually all the time up to that point from an injury that he had experienced earlier. And that pain was absolutely gone. He was totally refreshed, and he's thinking, what in the heck just happened here? Am I on to something? And so that was basically the start of the whole thing. They did a bunch of different studies. He went to a beauty shop, and they gave a bunch of the patrons of the beauty shop the Earthen products and tested it out on them to see how things were going. They went to a truck stop. They had made a mat that you actually would put into the seat of the vehicle and set on it. And then the electrons from the battery of the car, the negative goes to the frame of our vehicles in the United States. In Europe, it's a reverse situation. I don't know if you know that or not. The positive is actually hooked to the frame of the car. The point I'm making is that it doesn't matter where these electrons come from. And if you're riding in a jet plane 30,000 feet in the sky, that jet plane is grounded to the battery of the batteries that start up those planes to make them run. So if you take off your shoes, put them on the metal of the seat in front of you or behind you, you'll in essence grounded yourself to the plane and will prevent altitude sickness and prevent jet lag. Furthermore, if when you fly from New York to California, you get off the plane and you go out, walk barefoot in the grass, somehow there's an electrical conductivity that takes place and equalization, and you don't have any jet lag from the flight, and that's pretty cool. One time, matter of fact, it was on that flight I told you about when I went out to the Bahamas. My girlfriend had a headache. We stopped down in Tennessee for some gas. She knew about the earthing. I talked to her about it on the trip. She said, I'm going to go out in the grass. Well, she had on shorts. She went out there in the grass, sat there for 10 or 15 minutes, leaning forward, put her arms out on the grass. She came back in, said, you know what? My headache is totally gone. So that's some of the earlier things that I found out about it.
So let me
And so
let me interrupt you real quick.
Go ahead.
I have
Go ahead.
two quick questions.
All right.
Two back-to-back
Sure.
questions here. One,
Go ahead.
so it seems from your story about the plane and talking about how someone could, in theory, ground themselves to the plane, that the electric
Right.
part is the most important part, not necessarily because you're talking about grounding to a battery at that point. So that the
Exactly.
So
And here's the thing: an electron is an electron is an electron, and
Yeah.
doesn't care where it comes from. They always go from the point of high concentration to lower. Now, let me ask you this question. I want you to think about it. In your car battery, you have a positive and you have a negative, and you know that one of them is red and one of them is black, right? What direction does the electrical activity flow in that battery? You tell me.
negative to positive.
Exactly. Most people don't know that. They think it goes from the red to the black. They've got it reversed because the negative is where you've got a big pile up of electrons that are there.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hook up a light bulb or anything, it flows toward the positive to light the bulb. Okay. When you get hooked up to a grounding situation, you are now devoid of electrons, and they're going to come flowing into your body at the rate of trillions per second. And they will only come in to the point where you're fully charged up and the little LED light starts showing you it turns from red to green. You're fully charged. That's when you wake up 2 hours earlier. Now, let me come back and tell you my first personal experience with this that was phenomenal. You ready? Okay. I had purchased probably a $20,000 or $30,000 worth of earthing products, and I was going to try to make a bunch of money with it. And I went up to the RV sports show up in the Kansas City area. I paid $500 for 4 days of a table up there, and I had to pay $100 to have electricity come to the table. Well, I needed the electricity to ground the products that I was using to show them to the people. So I had $600 into it. Okay. And so what happened was I was sitting there. I ended up making back my $600, but I did not come profitable. So it was 4 days that I spent telling everybody about it and really didn't come out ahead at all. But the last day of the show, which was on a Sunday afternoon, a black lady, I was sitting in a chair there just kind of watching everything winding down. Here she come walking along looking like she was totally fatigued. And I said, sit down, we'll visit. Now, what do you got going here? I told her about it, and I put a band on her leg like a garter that had a metal plate on the inside, hooked a wire to it, hooked it over to the ground onto the electrical that I had there, and I'm sitting there visiting with her. In about 10 or 15 minutes, a big smile came across her face. I said, what are you smiling about? Because we put it on because her knee was hurting. And she said, my knee pain is gone, but also my back pain is gone too. I want one of each one of these products. And she wrote me a check for $300.
That's aggressive. I mean,
Okay,
if
now,
that's to be true, I mean, there's a lot to
Go ahead.
there's a lot
Go
to be
ahead.
said, right? And this sounds like the magical cure for absolutely everything, you know. And of course, if anything like this were to come about, it would be shut down immediately by the corporate oligarchs.
That
And
actually
I completely
that leads
agree.
me to my second question
Oh,
that I
yeah.
never
Okay.
that leads me to my
All
second
right.
question, which
Then
is
take-
is there
Go
any
ahead.
kind of, because this is something easily scientifically provable since you're dealing with electrons, and I mean
Exactly.
you're talking basic math and electricity here, basic science, which isn't difficult.
Exactly.
So what kind of research has been done on
Exactly.
this as far as effects of the human body kind of thing? Because I've never heard of this before.
Quite a few of them, but to show you how they're so resistant to accepting this. First of all, I want to tell you one other little anecdote story, because when I was headed up to that RV show, I had all these products in the back of my Jeep Grand Cherokee, and I'd been up at like 3 o'clock in the morning loading it up. It was snow on the ground. It was cold. I went over to El Dorado Springs. I saw patients all day. I was pretty well exhausted. On my way up to Kansas City, which was on Wednesday night, because the show was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, by the time I got over to a Sedalia up on the top of the hill, my neck was hurting, my back was sore, and I'm driving along. I thought, well, crap, maybe I ought to break out some of the stuff here in the back. Let's see how it works. So I went and stopped at a filling station, broke into the boxes, and I got one of the mats that you sit on, and I used it in 2 ways. I sat on the mat, and I also wrapped it up and put it on the back of my neck and hooked it right up to the cigarette lighter, because I knew that the edge of the cigarette lighter is a negative terminal. You know that, right? The center portion of your cigarette lighter is positive, the side is the negative. So I had it hooked up to the negative. I started up down the road, and within 5 minutes, my back pain and neck pain was absolutely gone. I had to call my sister out in Oregon and tell her what had happened because I couldn't believe it myself. Okay? Now, I want to show you this. Tell me if you can see that picture nicely of these knees. Okay? You see them?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, the ones that are all red, that's with infrared photography. The darker the red, the hotter it is and the more pain in the area. After that person was grounded, it went to the pictures there with the blue and cool, and that was within 30 minutes. That was spectacular. One of the other things that was one of my favorite plates was this one right here, and I'm looking at to see where we are here, and you see I've got some numbers, and it's well marked on. It goes looking at 0, 6, 11, and 16 minutes. This was, and we're looking here at the left hand, which is this one over here. You'll see there's no blood in it at the 0 position. You see that? Yes. They put an EKG pad right here in the center of the left hand, hooked it up to the ground, and in 6 minutes, it went to this, which you can start to see increased flow. Then it went over here to 11. You can see that here, and down here to 12. Look how that improved that circulation. Also, it will increase your healing capability significantly, and it just helps the body to do so many things. There is a picture here that right now is probably the time for one of the most impressive pictures, and I need you guys to really concentrate and look at it. On the side over here, because my picture is reversed to me, but this side here are 3 individuals, and if you'll look, and I'm going to give you the top one first, notice how those are clumped up red blood cells. Every one of you guys sitting there, that's the way your red blood cells look. 30 minutes after earthing, they came to be separated like these over here on the side. And then here's individual 2 and individual 3. Now, you know that you would rather have your blood cells look like these over on this side, because what has happened is the electrons have gone down and gotten onto the surface of the red blood cells, and a negative will repel a negative. And so it's like Cheerios in your bowl. All of those will separate out, and it thins your blood down, helping prevent a heart attack and stroke. Now, how cool is that?
No, that's extremely cool. The one thing that worries me is whenever you talk about like some easy kind of fix for some of these ailments. Somebody who eats nothing but cheeseburgers every day, smokes cigarettes, and drinks booze, and they go, "Oh, I can start earthing and then be healthy."
That's not how that works, man.
I just want to hear this out really quick. That there is also, like, you can't just do this and then be fundamentally healthy. Like, fundamental health basics have always been there, correct? Or does this even succumb even those? To where I can eat cheeseburgers, smoke cigarettes, and drink a fifth of bourbon, and then be okay.
What you're saying is absolutely 100% right, even though this is as cool as what it is.
So that's where I'm saying that's where it gets dangerous, doctor. That's where it gets dangerous, because then people can start.
I don't think it gets dangerous
because people in America just want the easy out on health, when health actually takes work. Health takes discipline and understanding and knowledge, and this is a part of it. This is a part of it too. But I just don't want to have this, a misconstrued idea that, man, this is the end all be all for health.
This is a panacea.
Because I don't think you'd say that either.
No, it's an aspect of your life, because you need plenty of sunshine, fresh air,
absolutely,
good clean water to drink, adequate nutrition. the vitamins, minerals. You need to love, and you need to laugh, and you need to have a good time with life.
Absolutely.
All of those things. You need to decrease your stress level. All that makes us a healthy individual.
And that's just the one thing that I wanted to get
Now,
across, that this
here,
isn't an end all be all. And I really it's really interesting. It's really interesting. And I can't wait to hear more about it, but I feel as though it needs to be reiterated at the fact that, man, you can't just think that this is going to be the end all be all fix of your life, that there's other aspects too, 100%, because I would feel a little...
In fairness, I didn't see it that way. In all fairness, I never took it that way.
But there are people out there that would see it that way.
Because there's so many people in America that literally want the pill, right? They just want to take the pill and lose weight.
Right.
They want to take the pill and then fix everything. And I'm not saying that that's what this is at all, but there are so many other variables that come into place to where people will get excited that hear about things like this. I know a whole bunch of people to be extremely excited to hear about this. I find this extremely interesting. I find anything scientific based, especially earth based. My grandfather owned a health food store. He's all about health food and just being all natural. It's super important. I agree with that, and I like where you're coming from. But you get into it, in just my opinion from this whole discussion, I just want to reiterate this to our audience, is that this is not an end-all be-all. You have to do a lot of other things too that, you can't just eat cheeseburgers, smoke cigarettes, and drink whiskey all day and then do earthing. That's all I wanted to say, and then have everything be fixed.
Well said.
So I just wanted to put that out there just really quick, because that's one thing
I appreciate it. You're 100% right. This particular plate here is terribly important. It looks kind of complicated, but I want you to notice all these circles that are on it here. See those? Every one of those places where I've circled simply says inflammation. For example, allergies, the top one, inflammation, Alzheimer's disease, inflammation, ALS, and then go on down. I'm not going to say inflammation after each one, but it's there. Mm-hmm. So it deals with anemia, arthritis, asthma, cancer. What's that one? I can't even... Autism. Yeah, by the way, autistic kids have been helped by this considerably, helping them to considerable level of higher achievement. Help with cancer, cardiovascular disease, both types of diabetes, fibromyalgia, intestinal disorders, kidney failure, lupus, MS, pain. Pain is the big one. That's what everybody wanted. Matter of fact, when I would put a little EKG patch on somebody's low back in the lumbar area, hook them up, and they would tell me within 10 to 15 minutes that their pain was diminished. And they weren't pain. I wasn't expecting them to say that. And then I would ask them, do you feel anything there in your back? The magic word was, yeah, I can feel a little bit of tingling. They may or may not feel that. I found out from lots and lots of patients applying these things that it felt different. Pancreatitis, psoriasis, eczema. And then I added, as you can see at the very bottom, anxiety and depression. Those are what my patients reported back to me that it was doing for them. Clearing out their anxiety, helping them with depression. And one of my female patients, a mother, she said, anytime the kids start acting up and they're fighting and fuming and fussing, you kids get in there, go lay on the earthing sheet for 15 minutes. Then they would come back. Their demeanor was totally changed.
How many patients would you say, give or take, that you performed earthing on, or some sort of earthing?
Hundreds.
And out
hundreds.
Of the
many.
And out of the hundreds, and just give it a percent. It doesn't have to be. I mean, give or take. How many people did it actually positively affect, or even negatively? Are there side effects?
Well, no, there was never any negative effects on it, but a lot of times it was difficult because I'm very much of a firm believer in the opioids as being tremendous medicine that should be helping people with both chronic and acute pain. But with this war on opioids and all this stuff that's going on right now, they've really shut that down. Matter of fact, the CDC came in. By the way, we should know the CDC has nothing to do with the government. It's a private organization. And just because they say something doesn't make it so. They came out that says opioids are not any good for anybody greater than 3 days, even post-surgical. Well, that's crazy. I have people that's got arthritis and this and that and the other, and say like a Percocet or a 10 milligram oxycodone 3 times a day would let them be functional, where they could garden, where they could get out and do things and not have so much excruciating pain. but they don't want people to be pain-free. Now, we need to move into something that's really important, that's another important concept, okay? And that is the free radical associated with inflammation. All these things where I showed you inflammation. What is inflammation? Okay, if something is inflamed, let's say you hurt your ankle, you're going to have swelling, okay? You're going to have pain, okay? You're going to have redness. That's the body's effect. And a certain amount of that is okay, but if there's too much of it, it becomes incapacitating. Now, associated with the inflammation is a free radical, which has a positive charge. Matter of fact, I drew it, I showed a picture here earlier, but just understanding the free radical, say I've got a bad shoulder, my shoulder is hurting. When the electrons come into your body, and it doesn't matter if it comes in by way of your feet or a wristband, you know, I even had one person who wasn't a patient, but a guy at church that I told him about it. He stripped off some wire, took it and wrapped the coil of wire up, put it on top of his head with some aluminum foil and pulled a stocking cap down on there because he couldn't afford the other things. And he hooked to the ground rod, said it worked perfect. Okay, so you can do a lot of things with it. But that positive charge that's in that person's back and that's in their shoulder, that's in their knee or wherever, is canceled by the negative charge of those electrons, and it takes the inflammation away. The Italians coined a word. Now listen carefully how I say this. Inflammaging. Did you get that last part of it? Inflammation causes accelerated aging on the individuals. And you can actually slow down the aging process by having the concept of earthing become a part of your life. Okay? Now, with that being said, we covered a lot of information. I have some other things in here. The other thing that I really want you to know is that it helps with, matter of fact, there's even one thing in here, and I even had a little sign made up because I put it up there with that, when I went to that sports show. It talks in here about how earthing can actually have a fella that actually gets an improved erection, okay? And decrease grief. I think that's right in here. But it has.
Come on, get to it. We all want to know.
we're
Everybody's
all
got
bated
notes.
breath.
Literally, we're all just sitting here with pens and notepads right now.
Rub my dick against the grass. Let's do this.
Come on, doctor. Help us out here.
You guys.
We all
Trip me out.
don't keep us in suspense
all right,
now.
here you go.
This
All
isn't
right,
an
I'm
M.
gonna have to read
Night
it, dude.
Shyamalan podcast,
That's
man.
got you
Let's
so
get to
excited.
it.
Okay, right from the book, The Male Connection. A number of men have described having better erections as a result of sleeping grounded. And then it says this might be a byproduct of improved circulation. Notice what I put in here in the book. I scratched it might be and said it is. You see that right here? So I made my own correction. It is a byproduct of improved circulation. Older men may also experience fewer trips to urinate at night. I forgot to tell you that, due to reduced prostate inflammation and deeper sleep. Also in here, right in this same section, it talks about how it helps them to lose weight. And it shows and documents it. And then earlier you guys were talking about, has there been anything done with this and so on? Yeah, there's been about 20 scientific papers written on it, but I want to tell you what happened personally. I took a whole bunch of this stuff to a conference of physicians such as myself, thinking that they would be absolutely delighted to know about it. They could have cared less. 2 or 3 guys out of a room of 150 people spent time to actually even look at it. And then I gave the book to the medical school up there and told them that they needed to basically research this because they have the PhD program and like that. Do some studies on it, bring some people in, put some numbers with it and all. Guess what? They never did anything.
What is so
They
fucking
just dropped the
crazy?
ball.
What is so crazy about just being connected with the earth? I don't get what's so crazy about that. Why wouldn't people be
This
interested
doesn't sound
in
like
that?
it has to deal with the earth. This is just electric in
Well,
general.
no, but you know what I'm saying? But part of it has to do with if you were just to walk barefooted, like how you could be grounded to the earth. I don't see what's so crazy about that.
Which, once
Okay,
again, Jesse said
let's
about
look
this
at a
hippie
story
thing.
right now.
It's a bad
Okay, let's talk
condemnation.
about Stephen
Yeah.
Sinatra.
It is a
for
bad
minute.
condemnation.
Here's another subject. Okay, Sinatra.
Not Frank,
and
right? Not
his
Frank,
son.
the other guy, the doctor.
No, Stephen Sinatra.
Yeah,
Now,
not
I'm
Frank
not going to
Sinatra.
read this to you. I'm just going to tell you. His son's name was Step. And prior to telling you about Step, we're going to tell you about Sinatra. Sinatra is a 40-year cardiologist that deals with integrative stuff. And he's all over the internet praising the earthing concepts and so on. And what he talked about is he had psoriasis. That is Dr. Sinatra. And so he liked to do bone fishing. So he went down to the salt flats of Florida with a big fly rod, would stand out there in the salt water and see those great big bonefish come along and cast the flies, and just really enjoyed it. And when he would do that, his psoriasis was completely healed up. And he attributed it to the salt water, to the fresh air, sunshine, and like that.
I was about to say sunlight has a lot to do scientifically
Vitamin D?
with healing psoriasis.
Yeah.
Being out in the sun, people with
Yeah.
psoriasis will even go to tanning beds, and that helps with psoriasis.
Can I give you my own account?
Right.
Sorry, doctor, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to give you my own account of,
okay.
and I just realized this within this own podcast, right? I've had chronic knee pain for a very long amount of time. I mean, since I was probably like 22, 23 years old.
And Dr. John, if he watched how he stood on a daily basis, he'd be like, "Yeah, that's where you're getting your knee pain."
I walk with a turnout on my right foot.
Really bad. Bad.
It's really
bad.
I've also had chronic pain in my right side of my body, which I equate to drinking large amounts of alcohol. It could be my liver, it could be my abdomen, I don't know. But anyways, it was about 5 years ago I went to Aruba, right? And I walk with shoes on all the time, sandals. I do that all the time. I don't walk on the earth. I don't sleep conducted to energy or whatever. You know
You're
what I'm
not
saying?
barefoot at the beach, man?
But hold on. So when we go to Aruba, right? Aruba, beautiful beach, gorgeous.
I've been to Aruba, by the way.
Yeah, I was there for 7 days. Not only do they have one of the cleanest drinking waters in the world, but now that we're having this conversation, I'm not saying that earthing was the reason, but after I had left Aruba, being there for like 7 or 8 days, and I'm not joking right now. This is not a lie. I'm completely honest. You could ask any of my friends at the time that I lived with. They would tell you that when I came back from Aruba and I walked on the beach, I was barefoot almost the whole time. Both of those pains went away.
Well, there you go.
I'm not even joking.
Is it a
free
possibility?
radicals were canceled. Go ahead.
Is it a possibility, Paul, that you were just on vacation and you just got away from the stresses of life and also mentality?
Because I got that coming back from Colorado.
No, dude, like I had that pain my whole life. Like
Utah.
that pain. No, I've been to Utah. The pain was still there. I walked in Utah.
Physiological pain is very much tied with psychological.
Did you not
too.
just hear me? I went to
got
Utah with you, man. Like I've been to places, Colorado with Blake and hiked. Those pains still existed, and I still wore shoes. When I went to Aruba, I was barefoot. I'm just saying, it may not be what he's describing, but it's just kind of coincidental that those pains went away after I came back from Aruba. Truly, they did.
In actuality, I think 100%, no doubt in my mind that you benefited yourself from the earthing techniques and what you did. That's what made the big difference. Okay? Now let's move on to STEP, S-T-E-P. Remember who STEP was?
You said it was
Sinatra.
Stephen Sinatra's brother?
Son. Okay. It was his son, and he was I believe he's in his 20s, and he was working on Wall Street with cell phones, wireless phones, computers, and what have you. It ends up that there are, and matter of fact, it's something that I'm kind of trying to specialize in the treatment of right now. It's called hypersensitivity to electromagnetic forces. And a lot of people have these. I have a friend that if we go into a restaurant, she can't sit anywhere near a large TV that's playing in there because it causes her to get a headache and messes her up. So anyway, that's what happened to this kid. And they just barely figured out what was going on and then got him out of that environment, got him away from all of that electromagnetic frequency stuff, and he completely recovered. And I find in doing the research and studying that I've been doing that the concept of earthing actually mediates or lowers the effect of the electromagnetic, kind of shields you from it and gives you somewhat of a protection.
I'm sorry. I'm just laughing because I saw the dog pop up right behind you.
Oh, that's a cute dog, man.
Yeah, he's up
Oh
there.
man, that's a
awesome.
cute dog.
That's
I
my
love
buddy.
dogs.
That's Dusty. Yeah, he's one of my favorites. He's a little sweetheart. I've got all kinds of them around here. This guy is he's one of the smartest dogs. Matter of fact, I know it's a little tacky and all to do it, but watch this. He can sing at will. I don't know if he'll do it or not. But,
Oh, please get him
right.
to do it.
You good boy, aren't you? All right, now I want you to sing a song here, okay? And show him, say, I love you. Now sing. Say, All right,
That's awesome.
That's
great.
a
That's
cute dog,
awesome.
man. I love dogs. I love dogs. Have the biggest part of my heart.
Sweetheart. All right, get down. We're doing something
And they're
important.
grounded
Okay,
at all times
now-
for the most part.
Yeah, they are. And I want you to come back and think about what I said earlier. When people used to walk their dogs, what kind of collars did the dogs have on?
Like you said earlier, leather.
Man,
Leather collars. And what were the leashes made of?
Leather.
Or chain.
Yeah, or
Leather.
chain.
So
Metal.
when they had the leather leash in their hand, they had the 4 dogs' paws contacting the earth, electrons coming through the dog, through the collar, through the leash, and into them. They don't have that now.
Man.
Why is this is my big question for this then? Because honestly, scientifically, it actually makes a decent amount of sense. You showed like the blood cells splitting up, which makes sense. An electron and an electron are going to push away from each other, two
Right.
negative charges. You talked about like there's a positive charge in stuff that's inflamed, and then so if you were to introduce negative
Right.
charges, in theory, that should get rid of it. Like in theory, like this all makes is the bare minimum that I know about science and electricity. This actually makes sense. The thing that I don't get then is why is this not mainstream then?
Because it gets rid of all the inflammatory issues.
no,
Well,
no.
then they're
Alright.
stuck to buying
this is the big-
buying shit.
No, so this is what I wanted to say is the whole point,
Right.
and this is why I back you up, Doctor. This is why I back you up, is because so much of Big Pharma right now is literally just pump you full of shit that kills you quicker
Oh,
for
you're
their
right.
own profit.
You're
For their
right.
own
You're
profit.
right.
Or not even kill
And-
you,
and
but
you-
you just have to stay on it.
Well, no, you stay on it. I could go down a road. I watched a beloved family member die of cancer, and I hated the way that they handled that, and because I won't even go down that road. But I really like where you're coming from with alternative medicine, and I believe in alternative medicine as far as nature doing its thing. Let nature do its thing. So I'm agreeing with you there.
But what are the
it's
odds?
Just a little hard.
What are the odds that you even suggest this to a family member? That like, hey, I did a
But there- but-
podcast with
okay.
Doctor Ure. Hold on, I did a podcast with Doctor Ure, and earthing is something that seems very interesting. And would you suggest it to someone? Would you go as far as to suggest it?
I need more research on it.
I would suggest
Research? What do you mean?
More
You
things.
literally
Okay.
buy. You get
Hold on.
grounded.
But I will say this to Dr. Ure. I guarantee you there's no negative. There is no negative to what he's saying. As to
I mean,
where
there's a
if-
lot
if
of
you-
negatives,
If you go chemotherapy, you go other things, there is huge negatives that literally deteriorate your body. And I guarantee you whatever he's recommending right now, if anything, if you get into the science behind it or whatever, I guarantee you it at least is not harming you. I
Yeah.
will tell you that right now. And thank you, Dr. Ure, for that. You're at least giving
Well,
an alternative
there-
medicine that is not going to harm you.
Yeah.
So there's no wrong in
Well,
that. There is nothing wrong in that.
Yeah, well, there are a couple of people I saw on the internet that were naysayers trying to show why it was bad, but I think that they were probably, what do they call them, shills of the government trying to keep people from doing it because too many people will feel better. I have 2 things here I want to share with you, and it really sums it up. The most important time to be grounded is when you're sleeping. You want to sleep grounded. And so I abbreviated these and made it simple. It's going to decrease pain and inflammation. It's going to improve sleep, improve your metabolism, improve your cellular function. It's going to decrease your cortisol level. It's going to decrease stress, anxiety, and depression. See, they never said that before earlier. This I found out on some new stuff because that wasn't in the book. We already see it improve circulation. It will lower your blood pressure. It decreases the blood viscosity. Now that's really important. It thins the blood. You know, that, and by the way, I should tell you this, I was fired from El Dorado Springs. I was called into the administrator's office, and she said, well, what are you going to do here? Because I was taking everybody off of statin drugs and this and that and the other. And, and I told her that, look, my responsibility, if I knew medicine was hurting somebody, not put them on it and take it off of it. That was my job as a physician. But anyway, the blood viscosity, it lowers the blood glucose level, improved energy, performance and recovery and wound healing, improved mood, thyroid function, other hormonal production, and your immunity. Did I tell you I sent an email to President Trump?
No, you did not.
No. Did he respond?
Well, I knew. No, matter of fact, my first line says, it's probably wasting my time to send this to you guys, because there's an email thing you can send it, because I was given several ways. I didn't tell him what it was. I said I would be willing to come to Washington and sit down with Trump and tell him, as a physician, what needs to be done to take care of these COVID people and so on. With earthing would be one of the things to utilize in the treatment.
Well, see,
Now,
that was your problem.
here,
You got straight to the science. You need to get them with a hook. Like, hey, do you like bombs? And then they read it.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
You see those two little stars there? I thought that was so important. It got 2 stars. Okay. It's a little bit of a repeat, but this is out of the book. Improves sleep in most cases, increases energy, lowers stress and promotes calmness in the body by cooling down the nervous system and stress hormones, normalizes the body's biological rhythms, thins blood and improves blood and flow, relieves muscle tension and headaches, lessens hormonal and menstrual symptoms. PMS wasn't on that list, but it definitely helps with it. Dramatically speeds healing and helps prevent bed sores. That's what I thought would make a whole lot of money, because having been a director of the nursing home up in Olathe, Del Mar Gardens, they have to report every month how many of the patients in the nursing home or residents have decubitus ulcers and the stages they're in and so on. The fact of those people on an earthing sheet, of which I've decided now it would be better for them just to have an earthing pillow and have the pillow be grounded, that would suffice it, because then you wouldn't have to deal with urine and feces and stuff like that and cleanliness with the sheet and so on. Someday maybe it'll work. Reduces or eliminates jet lag, protects the body against potentially health-disturbing environmental electrical fields, the EMF, accelerates recovery from intense athletic activity. So I think that gentlemen, we really went over it. We kind of started slow and picked up speed, and I think now we've hit a lot of things. There might be some other
Can you
things that you want to
can you talk about where to buy these products? I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, I think we'll get there.
Let's do this.
Let's
talk for a minute about why you don't have to buy the products in order to get the benefits of earthing. Because I've told a lot of my patients, as a matter of fact, I wasn't actually going to show it to you. I thought maybe I would, but it was sitting up here on my fireplace anyway. Okay, this is nothing but aluminum foil. This side here is a little bit funky, so it's maybe something to be desired. But I made this one day like a kid would with popsicle sticks. I just took heavy duty aluminum foil and I folded them into the width that you can see here. And then I just weaved them in. So one is under, one is over, and that's all it is here, you see?
Yeah.
And then I left a corner of it free somewhere. Out here on the corner, doesn't have tape on right here. This corner here I left free. That way I could put an alligator clip on here. Simply set this on your arm, have your arm sitting on it while you're watching TV. A ground wire runs out through underneath your screen, goes down to a piece of copper pipe. Boom. You've made it for pennies, and you can see how much it works for you. And if you want to, throw it on your bed down where your feet are, and I guarantee you, you will have tremendous positive results. No doubt in my mind.
And that has to be grounded to the earth in some way.
Right. And now here's the thing.
So where do you run that? Where do you run that to get it to the earth? Basically, that's hard.
We've already got multiple grounds at our house, like for like cable and everything else.
All
There's
right,
ground
now,
wires there.
Right. Now all homes are grounded. And by the code for the electricians, when you look at the 2 slots that's on a plug than the little circle one that's the ground pin. Okay, every single socket or outlet has to have the wires going to it, and the ground wires in there have no insulation on them, and they're usually painted green if you've done any of that electrical work. Then you've got the black and the white wire. Well, the problem of that is if that electrician for some reason didn't tighten that screw down just quite tight enough, it might not be as good of a ground plugging into that pinhole as it would with a wire that goes out directly to the ground. Up in my upstairs where I've been sleeping, I went ahead, because a wire is a wire is a wire, and you don't need insulation on it because you're not carrying any electricity of any nature. So I just used about a 20-foot piece of electric fence wire, about 18 gauge, wrapped that around, bolted it to a ground rod, come up, drilled a hole in underneath the sash, put the wire in through there, and then I hooked an insulated wire to take it over to the bed and hook it up. And I've got a grounding strip. By the way, a person that I would recommend that you checking out, there are two, Sophia Smallstorm, and she has a website called About the Skies, and I value her opinion. She's out in California, and I paid $150 for a strip of material about yay wide that goes across the bed, tucks under the mattress, because she was under the opinion that that would work quite nicely. Well, I toss and turn so much that it gets tangled up and all. And so I'm actually going to take another piece of sheet about yay wide, sew that strip onto it so that it has more of a stability to not roll up. But it definitely works. The other person that we need to give a little bit of attention to is Laura Conover, LauraKonover, I believe. She's an MD back east. Her website is Intuition Physician, and she has a lot of information. And like you said earlier on, grounding, earthing, they're all the same. It's getting remember I told you, trillions. That's a good word to remember. If you walk outside right now, matter of fact, let me tell you what I did. Well, I changed subject. When I was over in Jerusalem, I was on the second floor where we stayed with that girlfriend that went with me down to the Bahamas, and I had the same mat. Matter of fact, it was on that same trip because we went there when we went to Africa. But what I did is I simply took from the recovery bed that had the silver wires in it, went over to the bathroom faucet, which was metal, put the little electrode on it, wrapped it with some black tape, and I just now grounded my mat through the water system. Okay? So there you go. What question? What do you want to deal with more detail, or do you want to switch topics?
Well, I think that we've definitely went over a little bit over an hour. It's been a lot of good information. I don't want to overdo this podcast because I think there's a lot of good information for people to soak in, man. Like truly.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
and
if
I would just ask Doctor again, like kind of like Jesse was asking, what would be the most simple way for anyone just to give earthing a try?
He just told you with like the that's easy to do, and people.
Well,
no, I mean, you're in Jerusalem. I'm saying like if someone here in Missouri wanted to do it.
He said earlier with his aluminum foil on your chair.
Let me spell this out. The easiest way that you could give it a try for mere pennies would be do this. I hate to tell it about China Mart or Wally World, but go to Walmart, buy the heaviest duty aluminum foil that they sell. Now, just take and pull off a piece of that aluminum foil, fold it over a time or two, go over to the automotive section, right where they sell the light bulbs, and they've got the electrical tape and wire and stuff. They've got red wire and black wire. Just buy a little spool of wire. It costs $2 or $3, whatever, 50 foot long. And at that same point, look around on the pegboard, you'll see some little alligator clips, okay? Those alligator clips, what you're going to do is you're going to take that black wire or red wire, or doesn't matter the color, and you're going to strip off the insulation, put one end on the alligator clip the alligator clip to the aluminum foil. Now you've got a good connection to the aluminum foil. Run the thing outside. The best thing is to use a piece of like old copper plumbing type of thing, or maybe a solid copper rod, or if you're close to your electric box, you always have from your electric box of your home a wire, solid copper that goes down to a ground rod there. That's a great place to tie that into. And then either put it on your bed, sit on it, put it under your arm. Like I told you, that guy over at church, he put it under a stocking cap. But the concept is so easy. You just need to have a route for those electrons to get to your body. That makes sense?
And anyone trying that, definitely be careful when you're doing that. But yeah, I mean, I definitely want to give it a try. I truly do. My mind is blown. I'm not joking. I thought like Earthing was going outside and walking on the ground kind of thing.
I'm a little more. I will, like I mentioned this earlier. I came in biased. I'm trying to remain unbiased. I will say that I am very impressed by the amount of that this actually has more to deal with electricity than, I don't know, Mother Nature, crystals. You know what I mean?
Which Mother Nature still has a part, right? In some fashion.
But the important part is that you're talking about positive and negative charges.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay, understand this. At any given moment, there's electrical flashes all over the world that are coming down, hitting the Earth. The Earth itself has a negative charge. Okay, the surface of the Earth has a negative charge. And it's the repository of electrons that are there. And it is ready for, let me give you one here. This is very interesting. It just popped into my mind. It came out on a magazine that Clint Ober had put out, and they sent it to me. And it had a picture of him on the front, sitting at a desk with his feet barefoot up on the desk, and he was holding some daisies. Well, what they did is they took some yellow daisies and they cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. Okay. And then they put them in 4 glass vases. So each vase had 2 flowers, 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. You follow that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now they took a wire and they put a wire into each vase. Okay. And 2 of the vases had wires that went to a ground. The others were just a control that didn't go to a ground, but you didn't know it. And within several days, the flowers that were ungrounded were drooping and the heads were falling down. As a matter of fact, I can show you here rather quickly on my phone a picture that I did. I can probably find it pretty quickly by the way that I was looking at some roses. And I was looking at that, thinking about how a person could maybe make some money or sell that type of thing. Matter of fact, here they are right here. I can show you a picture. And there it is, and I'm going to enlarge it. Okay? These are the flowers that were not in a ground situation. See how their heads are all drooping? Okay? Now, over here you can see it better looking here on the side. And you see how the leaves are kind of withering and those heads of those flowers are drooping? Okay? Now, let me come back over here and show you these here are the ones that, let's see a good picture. Here's probably a really good one. These, the same bouquet of flowers, okay, same length of time. Look at the difference in how they appear. Is that incredible or what?
That it is.
I just thought that was pretty fascinating. And I did this myself. And so, you just have to take it at face value that the only difference is I separated the bouquet into grounded and non-grounded and then observed them and took pictures to show that effect. And I didn't even plan that for tonight.
Well, again, there's a lot of good information, Doctor. Thank you again for joining, man. It's a very heart-filled and full of information podcast, man. That
anything's better than Big Pharma.
Yes.
Like what you're saying, at least it's better than Big Pharma because they're
evil.
One thing I want to tell you guys that I've been telling a lot of people on emails and Messenger and this and that about your site. And I've had quite a lot of people looking at that first podcast, and I invited a bunch of them to see this one when it comes out. And I think you guys probably looked at the comments from the first one. I think you guys are doing a great job, and what we're doing was well received.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much,
Thank
man.
you very much.
And again, it's by fate that we met at the job that I work
Isn't that
at.
something?
Yeah, it's fate,
That's
man.
the Romans 8:28. Remember?
Yes, sir.
Romans 8:28. All things happen for the good of them that love God.
Yep. Doctor John Ure, thank you for joining Talk Junkies, man. We look forward to having you on again, man. Earthen, man. You guys check it out. You guys can check out Dr.
Okay.
John Ure on down-to-earthmedicine.org, or you can find him on newswithviews.com. Then you check out the articles tab, and then you scroll down and you see articles that he's wrote on that website. He's got a lot of great information on his own website, the first one that I described. Check him out, honestly. He's got a lot to offer, and he's offered that on Talk Junkies. Dr. John Ure, thank you, man.
Thank you so much. Tell you all goodbye. Take
Always
care,
a
guys.
pleasure. Always
Thanks,
a
Doc.
pleasure, Doctor.
Bye-bye.
See ya. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another great podcast with Dr. John Ure. I think we'll kind of leave it at that, man.
Yeah.
Just be careful if you try out earthing. I know I'll definitely have to be careful because I have no idea how to do that.
I used to deal with the grounding and stuff all the time whenever I worked for Dish. That's super simple. You've literally got a couple out there right now
Yeah,
in your backyard.
no, it all made sense when he was saying it to me, but I just be careful if you try and do it, man. But like Jesse said, man, it's better than the alternative, which is medicine that most likely is killing you over a period of time. I've seen it firsthand with my stepfather, who was on heavy medication for having diabetes and pancreatitis and losing his vision, man, on all sorts of medication. It was very hard to watch. But anyways, man, the best thing you can do, man,
Throw away your Viagra. Throw away your Cialis. Alligator clips, 9 volts, nipples.
Yeah.
Good to go.
Absolutely.
at least give it a try, right? But best thing you can do is like the video, share the video, tell our junkies out there.
Stay fly and ring the bell.